Hey, how are you? Pichcast episode 2 coming at you. Um, Going to tell you what's coming up on the show today, and then you're going to see me in a bunch of different outfits because I'm going to be recording this over the course of a couple of days. A couple of my favorite baseball players have retired this season. One has not officially announced it yet, but if the end of the last game of the season, Ryan Zimmerman got a nice send off from the Nationals, which kind of leads you to believe that maybe he's not coming back. And another Ryan Braun from the Milwaukee Brewers, retired earlier this season officially. I got to give my thoughts on this because these are two of my favorite all time baseball players. And it might seem a little obscure, but I'll tell you why. I also am going to tell you a little bit more about the Orlando Magic podcast me and my cousin are doing. You can kind of see it displayed around the room here. That's why I designed the basement with a lot of the Magic stuff near where I would be shooting because Court Cousins has gone live and it's doing well so far. We're getting ready to shoot our next episode, and we're stoked about it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Going to do a brief NFL check-in, talk about all around how it's going after the first month of the season. We're 4 games in. Some teams looking nice, some teams looking bad, but going to discuss it quickly. And as a result of that, I'm also going to be talking a little bit about the Brady return to New England. Man, I wish I didn't have to talk about it, but it was a big deal around here. People wanted to talk about it, and I did watch the game, and I have thoughts, so I will share them. And lastly, I want to include a little bit of a basement tour. Most of the time on the show, you're going to see this, which doesn't really give the full scope of what's going on. You don't get to see the TV over there. You don't get to see the couch that's right behind me. So I kind of give you a little bit of a tour around. You don't get to see the stuff that's behind the computer here. So a little bit of a tour around, checking it out. And man, then I'm going to have some thoughts on COVID. I haven't talked about it yet. And you know, I have thoughts. And I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the way people are reacting to it and what's going on. I'll tell a lot of my own tales and then also suggest a couple of podcasts that people can listen to get some news because it seems like news only comes out on one side of this coin and it just doesn't seem right to me. But I'm paraphrasing. Anyway, Pichcast episode 2 is coming up. And before I go any further before you go any further into this one, the point is back here in episode 2. Point. I had previously shot in episode 2, but the sound was so bad. There wasn't really anything that I could use from it. So hopefully this sound works a lot better this time. Learning as we go. Things are getting better in the podcasting department. So I had a lot of people reach out to me after the first episode went live, and they want to be on the show. So in future episodes, I think you're going to see me on here with some of my friends talking about all kinds of random stuff, stories from the past, and it's just going to be a blast. There's already about 3 or 4 that are trying to line up within the next week or so, and I'll probably try to mix them into the show. Maybe it'll just be a segment and I'll add it in. I want to try doing some segments for a while because I'd like to try to keep these a little shorter and a little more digestible lengths of about a half an hour, definitely no more than an hour. So yeah, I want to try to get out some weekly content. So this is my stab at that. And I think it's going well. So that was a lengthy intro to the show, but there it is. It's going to be a good one. So buckle up or boil some tea, whatever it is you do when you kick back and relax. Get ready to hear some things you may not know told in a solid way by a bearded fella. How's it going? I figured we'd come on in. Let's go down into the basement. Let's check it out. A little basement tour action for you. Around, get you coming down the stairs. So this contraption here belongs to my roommate. He used to work out down here, so that stuff's his. And over on this side, you got the washer and dryer. This kind of looks like a regular basement, right? Just some stuff in there. But over on this side, this is where I take over. And I've got a lot of stuff in here. This is a great sign I picked up at Buc-ee's, actually, in Texas. So here I've got a couple of hooks, which allows me to kind of change what I have
on the wall behind me at any time. So it gives me a chance to change up the look. And then with things like all this stuff up here, this is all the Velcro stuff, so that I can basically change, whatever I have up here on the walls for whatever I want in the background, which is kind of fun. So then I've got my chair over here, kind of got it broncoed out. And I got all this stuff over here. So, this is a great tour. I'm being very thorough with my description of what's going on here. So this is the couch that got when I was in Texas. That bottom part there actually rolls out, and that whole thing becomes like a bed surface. I've slept down here quite a bit because the TV is right over here. A little Monday Night Football on there right now. A couple teams I don't like, but it is what it is. And so I've got my regular kind of swaggy stuff all up on the walls. And here's the spot that you can't see that's kind of behind the camera over here. And so there it is. And then I've kind of got a bunch of storage stuff over here in the corner and underneath this table, but it kind of makes for a nice big space for doing all the podcasting, all the stuff I need to do. So yeah, I'm really excited to be able to have a spot where I've got my chair, my couch, and it's just it's a great space. It's kind of giving me life right now. This is like, I enjoy hanging out down here. I'm out of the way of anybody else, and I have 2 other roommates that live here, but they don't really ever come down here. So I kind of just, I'm making the most of the space and put all my stuff down here, and it's great to just have my own place to hang. And I'm glad to be able to podcast from it and kind of let people in that way. So that's the basement. Thanks for coming.
Hey, all right. I want to talk about 2 of my favorite baseball players of all time retiring, and a little bit of a unique link to some of them. Anyway, normally I would never do this kind of thing right here, but it's fitting for what I'm going to be talking about today. I got to start off with Ryan Zimmerman. Seems like he might be leaving the Washington Nationals after the little send-off they did at the last game of the season for him. His entire career spent with the Washington Nationals. He has been my favorite player since pretty much day one with the Washington Nationals. I guess maybe not day one, because when they first started out, I didn't really know who he was. He was the first Nationals draft pick ever, and he really panned out. And it's rare this day and age, again, to also see a guy stay with one team forever. But actually, both these guys did, which is cool. But Ryan Zimmerman, I was just such a big fan of him. I was a big Expos fan, and I decided to follow the team to Washington because they had a lot of the same players and coaches and stuff like that. It was basically the same organization. And as upset as I was that they were leaving Montreal, I decided, I got to do something with my fandom. So I gotta join the Washington Nationals group. So I went right over with them and saw them in, I think, their first or second season at old RFK Stadium. And I've been down to Nationals Park several times since. Big Nationals guy. That aside, let's talk about Ryan Zimmerman. He was one of the first guys that I really connected with and got behind on that team. I actually got the jersey on. He plays third, which is a position I play a lot. He wears the 11, which is a number I've worn before, especially playing baseball or softball. And then even later in his career, as he started to get hurt and didn't have the arm anymore, he moved to first, which is also something I did in softball. If I ever got injured, boom, I'm over at first. He was a Gold Glove winner, a Silver Slugger. I felt like I was more known for my glove. I don't know if I ever would have gotten a Silver Slugger award, but I had a high on-base percentage. Never know. But this guy was just a pillar of the community. When Nationals Park opened, that game was on TV. He had a walk-off home run to lead the Nationals to victory in that first game ever at Nationals Park. And his legend started to grow from there. And then for a long time, he was just the best player on a bad team. And I think his prime of playing probably passed him before the Nationals World Series year. but he was still a very key piece on this. He had some big hits and big home runs in that run as they went, and he was kind of like the veteran leader on that squad. And a lot of times when you see a team win a championship, there's always like, one guy that's like that veteran that's been there for a long time, or that guy that you really want to see win the championship. And like, I feel like Ryan Zimmerman was that for the Nationals. He's part of what made that story and that team so fun to watch, and why America kind of got behind them, because it was kind of cool to see. Here's a guy who's played with this team his whole life, and a very solid, productive player, and now he gets a chance to win a World Series. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I teared up that night, watching him celebrate and watching him, get the trophy. That's what it's all about. That's what you play the games for, and that's what makes it fun. And Ryan Zimmerman had a great career, and I'm gonna miss him being with the Nationals. I think the Nationals are gonna miss him being with the Nationals. Maybe he'll get a job in the front office or something like that. But what a great player. I felt like he was a role model, great guy in the community. I don't think anyone had a bad word to say about Ryan Zimmerman. And that is something that's hard to do. You play your whole career with a team, you produce at a high level for several years. No one has a bad thing to say about you. You win a championship. Ryan Zimmerman did it all. I know he's not going to see this, but I want to thank you, Ryan Zimmerman, for being the rock on the Washington Nationals when they were terrible, and then getting to be there when they were good as well. So congratulations to you and a great career. We'll see you in the Hall of Fame. It's coming. Cooperstown. Maybe I'll go to that one. I haven't been to Cooperstown before, which I know might be shocking to some, but not been. That would be a good reason to go. Now I'm going to swing to Ryan Braun, and I don't know if Ryan Braun will ever get the call from Cooperstown because of the drug scandal issue that he had. But Ryan Braun was another guy that's drafted by the Brewers, 5th overall, played his entire career with the Brewers, had some big moments there, was a steady star player for them in left field for years. Retired earlier this season due to some injuries and trying to clear some space for the Brewers for the rest of this run. So if the Brewers win this year, he would still be kind of considered a part of this team. So I'm really pulling for the Brewers this year so they can get some sort of semblance of a championship in his career, because he played on a lot of great Brewer teams. And I got into the Brewers when I moved to Milwaukee in 2008. I lived less than a mile from Miller Park. Went to a ton of games, and this guy was the man. Cecil Fielder, Prince Fielder was there at the time as well, and CC Sabathia was there that time. Like right when I moved there, that was when they picked up CC. So that was a fun year, and that was the year that the Brewers broke their playoff streak. They finally got in. They won the wild card in a dramatic game at the end of the season. Ryan Braun hit a home run in the bottom of the 8th. To put them up, and they won. And I was there when they got to celebrate. The whole stadium stayed. It was probably one of the most epic events I've been to in baseball as far as attending as a fan. A few days later, I won a raffle at work and actually would end up at game 3 of the wild card series against the Phillies. And they won that game, but they would lose. That was the only one they won in the series. But Ryan Braun was a big part of all that for me. Tons of bobbleheads, shirts, jerseys. He was the guy. I think he was a good dude. I think the drug thing is a bad mark on his name, but I think other than that, he did a great job in the community. I think he was a great guy, great baseball player, and one of my faves. And we're gonna miss him in Milwaukee. But these are two guys that play their entire career with the team, and it's awesome that they now they're retiring with that same team. So I think that's pretty awesome. And I'm not sure if Cooperstown will call for Ryan. It should, if you went based on solely the numbers, but I know because of other players who've had cheating scandals that don't get in, maybe he won't. But thanks so much to Ryan Braun for all you did for Milwaukee, and it was a pleasure watching you play. And it's interesting to me that also as a kid growing up, my favorite baseball player was Nolan Ryan. So I guess if you want to be a favorite baseball player of mine, you should probably have Ryan in there somewhere. Maybe Juan Soto should change his middle name to Ryan, so I can really get on board there. It is getting a little difficult now, and I think it's a little bit of a sidebar as you start to get older as a fan. That first time when you get out of your kid era and all your heroes start retiring, and you have to look to the next generation to find another one. Now, this feels like the second generation of stars. These aren't the guys I grew up watching. These are the guys I watched in my 30s, and now they're retiring. So now you got to dig deeper and find even younger guys that to get on board with and start to follow their career and be fans of. And it is weird as you go forward as a sports fan to have to keep hitting the reset button on all these new guys and getting on board with new stars. But thanks to the Ryans. Best of luck in retirement. We'll see you again. I'm sure these guys are going to stay involved in the communities and stuff like that. So the Ryans are riding off into retirement. Tip of the cap, sirs. Hey, all right. I know we didn't say we were going to talk about this at the beginning of the show, but we just did. We just talked a little bit of baseball, talking about the Ryans retiring. So, hey, why don't we go ahead and talk about the postseason? I had previously recorded one where I took a guess at giving you my picks for the postseason, but it made it pretty hard when the wild card's there. So let me get this rant out of the way up the front. I hate the baseball wild card the way it is. I hate that two teams make it and play a one-game playoff to decide who goes on. I just don't think it's fair. I think the old system worked. You take the team with the next best record and you let them in. Best case in point would have been the Dodgers in this case, who won a record, I believe, 106 games or 107 games. Excuse me if that's not correct. But they had the second most wins in all of baseball, and they could have been gone in one game. And that's just not fair. Luckily, they won, so they beat the Cardinals. But the Cardinals had that streak of like 17 games in a row where they won, too. So arguably, they were one of the hotter teams in baseball, and they didn't make it in. So people make the case of, well, yeah, but should the Cardinals have not made the playoffs? It's like, well, yeah, they should have, but they weren't the best team in their division. So you take the best teams in each division and then the one team with the next best record, and you let them go. The one-game wild card's not fair to what could be the second best team in the league, not making it to a series. Like, you should be playing series. You work towards the World Series, and you should be playing series to get to that World Series. I don't like the 5-game playoff in the NLDS. And to further my point, now the Dodgers and the Giants, the teams with the two best records, are going to face each other in the NLDS. And one could argue that they should be playing in the NLCS. One could argue that maybe that winner of that series is going to win the NLCS. But point being, when you play that many games during a regular season, they need to mean more than just getting you to a one-game series. The 5-game series I don't like either, but at least I can go, all right, it's something. Baseball seems to kind of try to rush their playoffs, where all of a sudden it's like, boom, here they are, and they're playing like every day, and they're overlapped, and there's games at 4:00 in the afternoon, and it's like, do you care about the fans? Do you care about these players or these teams that have made it? Like, shorten your season, start the playoffs a little early, because right now you've got the NFL season kicking off. They're four weeks in. You've got NHL coming back soon, and NBA going, college football's going. Like, there's a lot of good sports going. And like last night, I heard Tim Kirkjian on ESPN saying, there's nothing better than October baseball. And it's like, yeah, there is. There's like, the Super Bowl, and there's and Stanley Cup playoffs, and there's March Madness. There's like a lot of things better than postseason baseball. I do like baseball, but I just feel like it's not as important as those other things. And if they did their playoffs a little earlier, before all this hype started going for the other sports and the other ones started up, I feel like they'd get more of the casual fans. I'm guilty of, if my team's not involved, it's not appointment viewing for me. I'll watch it, just to put it on or something like that. Or if, I'm in a bar, I'll keep an eye on it. But if I don't have some connection to the team, team that from my town's not in it, or my favorite team's not in it, then I'm kind of just like a casual, I don't need to see it kind of observer. So if baseball did this playoffs a little earlier, I think it would behoove them into getting the general pop in on watching some of these games. So with that rant a little bit out of the way, I don't like the baseball postseason. Now let's talk about it, because we've got our 2 wild card winners, and the Yankees and the Cardinals, they're on the outside, but they got enough championships. Nobody's crying for them. So let's go ahead and start in the AL. You've got Tampa Bay taking on the Red Sox. I I was got a little bit of a casual observer on the MLB season this year, but I know Tampa made the World Series last year. Didn't pay much attention to that season either. I'm still not sure why Tampa Bay is good. Tampa Bay is going to become the Montreal Expos at some point. So I wish they wouldn't use their good seasons up now. Wait until you come to Montreal, and then I'll root for you. Right now, I just don't understand why they're good. And Tampa has had enough winning. And I mean, aren't we all sick of them at this point? And a town that had a lot of winning is Boston. So I'm pulling for the Red Sox in this one, honestly. I just want to see their. I mean, I live pretty close to Fenway Park, and I just feel like I'd rather have that going on in my neighborhood than not. So hopefully they win. A lot of baseball usually doesn't go the way I want it to. Only in 2019, when the Nationals won, did a playoff really go the way I wanted it to go. So, and then the other series in the ALDS is the White Sox and the Houston Astros. I did not know that the White Sox were good, but apparently somebody has to win the Central, and no other team stepped up. Houston is back again, trash can scandal or not. Here they are. And I don't even know who to pick because, again, I didn't watch a lot of this stuff. I know the Red Sox probably most out of this bunch. It's hard for me to pick a winner here. I'm not really sure how this is going to go, but I'm going to just go straight homer and pick the Red Sox. Hopefully they can make it to the World Series so I can have a chance to get to a World Series game. That's my hope. So that's who I'm picking, even though it may not be correct. But if you're not paying a ton of attention and you're not 100% sure about these teams, you can pick with your heart. You can just make a wild guess. It's fine. Baseball sometimes is like that. In the NL, the Giants and the Dodgers, I mentioned it already. These are two of the best teams in baseball. I think it's the first time they've ever faced off in the playoffs, and they're huge rivals. I took a look at the San Francisco Giants lineup. Didn't really recognize a lot of these names. Not sure why they're so good. But I know all the Dodgers names. My God, these guys have been in the playoffs a lot. The defending World Series champs. They have, Hall of Famers at a lot of positions, really, when you get down to it. And their pitching staff is amazing. I'm taking the Dodgers in this one. I don't care what what everything else says. I'm just going Dodgers here. I feel like they've got the intangibles, the stars, and they're going to find a way to get it done there. Brewers and Braves. I got to pick my Brew Crew, even though if you're a casual observer and you look at the Brew Crew lineup, it's not dotted with superstar names that you would know either. And even Christian Yelich has been having an off season for the Brewers. So, but again, the Braves, I'm not really sure why they're good. I've heard of most of their players because they play in the same division as the Nationals, but I just don't know why they're good. Honestly, don't even know if it matters because even though I really want the Brewers to win here, I couldn't see it being anybody but LA. So I guess if I'm going to pick somebody out of the NL, I'm going with the Dodgers here. I want to pick with my heart and go Brewers, obviously, but I just don't think they can stack up against the Dodgers. They're too dominant. So that would give us a Dodgers and Red Sox World Series. I just don't think anyone's beating LA. I don't like it, honestly. My late grandfather was a big Dodgers fan, so he would love it. But this team's just been buying everybody and buying what they need and getting Scherzer and Trey Turner at the trade deadline. I mean, that's too big. They're just too good. They have too many weapons on this team to not win. If they don't win the World Series, their season should be considered a failure, really. Because they're too dominant. They have Hall of Famers at every position. The Red Sox would be there as sort of, well, look at what we did, because I'm not sure they're quite World Series, power dominant. But sometimes you just got to get hot at the right time. Beating the Yankees in a one-game wild card is a good way to start getting hot. So if they beat the Yankees and then beat Tampa Bay, I think they'd feel pretty empowered to make a World Series run. But I don't think there'd be any more magic left at that point when they got to face the Dodgers in a rematch. And that would be fun if the Dodgers could then even it up with the Red Sox in the World Series, and then maybe in another couple of years they could do it again or something. I don't know. Not saying I want that per se, but Major League Baseball loves it. You have a couple of major markets in the World Series, so they would love this as well. So I'm going with a Red Sox Dodgers World Series. Dodgers to win, but go Brew Crew. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the NFL right now. The first month of the season has been completed. And after the first episode, it was the first game of the season. So I figured we should check back in on all of football. The Bills, who had a rough start against the Steelers, losing that first game. We talked about it a little bit with Bruce Smith, who I had on the show. They've won 3 straight since, and they look pretty dominant. 2 shutouts in there as well. So they're looking nice at 3-1 in the AFC East. They have a 2-game lead over everybody else. Miami looks pretty terrible and can't figure out their quarterback situation. The Jets have looked terrible, and Zach Wilson has looked terrible. Mac Jones looks good for the Patriots, though. And if I can talk briefly about the Brady return game, I wish I would have put some money down on the Patriots covering the spread because I figured that game was going to be close. I knew that Belichick, he just knows Brady and he knows how to get at him. And they did a good job. And it was a pretty good game. And Mac Jones played well for the Pats. And I think that was about as I normally wasn't looking forward to the game because I don't like the Buccaneers or the Patriots. And I hate Tom Brady. But it was a close game. It was interesting. And I think we saw that Belichick is clearly what's good. And now Brady's good because he's on a team with a super team. So Belichick's the real brains of the operation. Tom Brady's the most overrated human of all time. And we're moving on. In the AFC North, this is a division. They have 3-1 teams with the Ravens, Browns, and the Bengals, ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, the Steelers sitting at 1-3, their only win, that one over the Bills. So they're having a tough go of it right now. I'm not sure if the Bengals are going to be able to sustain, but they have an exciting offense, lots of weapons. Never know. It's too early in the season to really be anointing any of these teams champions as of yet because injuries can really change anything up. And if anybody knows that, it's the Denver Broncos down here because they lost Teddy Bridgewater the other day. He's in the concussion protocol. Hopefully only misses a game or so. But they're not going to be the same team without him. They started 3-0, but they played 3 really bad teams. And then they ran into the Ravens and had a rough go of it, especially without Bridgewater in there. So it'll be interesting to see what team shows up next week. The next month will determine whether this is going to be we're going to make the playoffs or we're not. Right now, if the playoffs started, the Broncos would be the 7th seed. That's cool. But that might be where they are at the end of the season, too. So we'll see. They joined 2 other teams, the LA Chargers, who I call the LA Clippers because they're LAC, and the Las Vegas Raiders, who I call bums because anyone who would like that team and organization is just a bum. But they're all 3-1. Could you imagine that Kansas City would be in sole possession of last place after 4 games? But they are at 2-2. But let's not be fooled. They're a better team than 2-2. I think they could still finish 3rd in this division, though, depending on the way things shake out. And hopefully Mahomes continues to deteriorate into the chance-taking quarterback that he is, and the mistakes are going to continue to pile up for this guy. In the AFC South, you got the Tennessee Titans at 2-2 leading the way. Of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars still continue to suit up every week. They're technically a team. They have been in some games, and they have had some close calls. So at some point, they will get a win over some other bad or run-of-the-mill middle team. But for now, they'll sit at 0-4. And the Texans and the Colts are sitting at 1-3 each, either two. And this division just doesn't instill a lot of confidence. It's going to have a big one. The Titans should be the team to beat in this division, and if they can get healthy, especially at wide receiver, and their offense can get back on track, I feel like they're still the team to beat in this division. I think people had high hopes for the Colts, but so far, kind of a dud. But they could turn it around. Over in the NFC, I gotta say I like what I see from the Dallas Cowboys. Even in their one loss against the Buccaneers, I thought they looked pretty good. They're atop the NFC East at 3-1. I think, barring any major injuries, this is the team to beat in this division for sure. Washington at 2-2, and then the Eagles and the Giants at 1-3 respectively below them. I don't think they're going to challenge. I think those are both 2 teams that are trying to find their way right now. In the North, you've got the Packers at 3-1 over the Bears at 2-2. The Vikings at 1-3, and then the Lions at 0-4. And talking about heartbreak, the Lions have been close a few times, but they just can't break through. They'll get rid of that 0 at some point and put up a win against someone. But again, I think the Packers are the team to beat here. They lost week 1, and everyone started hitting the panic button. But as we've learned with Aaron Rodgers, if he's your quarterback, you're in it no matter who else is on your team. He is one of the best of all time. Just leading groups of men that, whether they're good or not, he finds a way to get things done. So I expect him to be there at the end of the season. In the NFC South, you got the Buccaneers and the Carolina Panthers at 3-1. Might be a little surprising, the Carolina Panthers at 3-1, but if the Saints weren't going to step up, they're 2-2, and the Falcons are 1-3. Somebody else has to win some games, and Carolina's looking pretty solid right now. Pretty solid. Just made a big trade today to get Stephon Gilmore from Patriots that are trying to bulk up. Panthers are thinking this might be their time to make a run, but defending champ Buccaneers are still there, and they're still a very loaded team. They have a lot of good players, but they don't have a lot of backups, and they're starting to see some issues, especially in the secondary on defense. So that could come back to bite them down the road here, not having a very deep team. They just signed Richard Sherman, as a matter of fact, just because that's how late they were for. So injuries could pile up, and the Buccaneers could start to slip down. You never know. In the NFC West, which is maybe one of the better divisions in football, you've got the Cardinals emerging as the only undefeated team left at 4-0, and then the Rams at 3-1 right behind them, who just lost the Cardinals, and then you've got the Seahawks and the Niners at 2-2. I'm amazed at how well the Cardinals are playing right now. I thought the Rams were going to be the team to beat out of this one, but they beat them pretty handily the other day. It's interesting. Their offense is clicking right now. They're flying all over the place. Kyler Murray's leading them, and they're getting things done. I think in the long run that the Rams will find a way to get back and beat them. But Arizona may end up winning this division, and the Rams may have to find their way in via the wild card. I don't have a ton of faith in Seattle and San Francisco, but they could turn things around. You never know. I think San Francisco's got to figure out what they're doing at QB and get a little more offense going. And I mean, right now, I don't feel like there's too much that's that shocking, except maybe the Cardinals being 4-0. But really, it doesn't shock me that much. It's just 4 games, and they're a pretty solid team. I think I probably would have had them more at 2-2 or 3-1 myself, but Bengals being 3-1 is a little shocking, and probably Kansas City at only 2-2. I think the Chargers and the Raiders both being 3-1 is kind of like, but I don't know if they have staying power, but we'll see. But other than that, I think it's a good start to the NFL season. I've enjoyed what I've seen so far. I love fantasy football, and I love following all football, not just my Broncos and Bills. So NFL action. It's football. Going to end the show on a weird note, but a serious note. And I only say weird because most of the show has been kind of upbeat, fun, relaxed, laid back. But now I want to talk about something really serious. I want to talk about the whole pandemic and share some of my thoughts about it. And I think everybody's got a unique take on it and how it's affected their lives and all that kind of stuff. And I don't feel like mine is really that different than anybody else's. I'm not a fan of it. I don't think anybody else was a fan of it unless you somehow profited from this, but we'll get to that eventually. For me, back in March 2020, going to work as I normally would. One day when I was there, I didn't feel good, and I left work early. And the next day was the day that they kind of shut everything down. And that's when COVID really started to hit me. So for the next 10 days, I was mostly bedridden. It was probably one of the worst ailments I've probably had. I'd say top 3 at least. It kind of knocked me down, and I was down pretty hard for, like I said, about 10 days. I pretty much just quarantined myself in my room. I stayed away from my roommates, and I wasn't sure what it was. COVID was new then. We didn't know as much about it. I talked to my doctor virtually, like on the phone, and in a Zoom meeting. And they didn't think I had it at the time, but later we find out that it was that because I had lost my sense of taste. But back then they didn't know that. I remember watching TV a lot, kind of watching, Trump speak and other people come out and say things, and it was a little scary because we didn't know a lot about it then, and I didn't know what was going on. So I was freaked out a little bit. But when I got better, I had to get checked in before I could go back to work because we were still allowing people to go into work intermittently to check the building out and make sure things are okay in there and do some projects eventually down the road. So I had to get cleared before I go back. So I ended up actually going for an in-person visit on March 29th, and talked to my doctor for a long time. He had a lot of time that day, and we discussed a lot of stuff. We discussed, what they knew about COVID stuff at the time and all that. And he was very casual with me, and said he wasn't worried about it at all. Just a slightly stronger strain of the flu, and told me about all the damage that flu does in a year. Kind of put that on my map. The flu knocks out a lot of people every year. And he said that this one may knock out a little bit more because it's a different strain that we didn't have a flu shot for. But essentially that most people who were healthy and didn't have pre-existing conditions were going to be fine. And he pointed to me as an example because I had gotten it and recovered, even though it hit me kind of hard. So, but actually at the time he wasn't sure that I had 100% had it. They didn't have testing for it. But he said, if it ends up that you had it, you're recovering, it's going to be better than pretty much anything you could get. So I was like, okay, this is great. And he basically kind of ended it by saying, go live your life. And I was like, wow, all right, cool. So I went out to go live my life, and nobody else was out here living. So it made it difficult. It was mostly just work and home, and mostly at home for a while before they would let us go back into doing stuff. And then at the time I was dating someone, and I would hang out with my girlfriend a lot as well. So just kind of rotated between those few places. Once in a while, go to a grocery store, get some food. It was just a weird time, obviously, for everybody. And I hated it a lot. It just made me angry. I didn't understand why. It didn't seem like it was that serious, but everybody was taking it super serious. And I respected it. For the first couple of months, that like, okay, we got to figure out what this is and know more about it. And, but I was upset when they canceled all of April, to be honest. I remember being upset when they canceled April, and then midway through April, when it seemed like there wasn't going to be any May either, I was like, wow. It's like, if you would have told that guy back then in 2020 that, things would remain shut until, a year from then, I would have lost my mind probably back then. And conversely, if you would also have told that guy that people would still be wearing masks in October of 2021, I would have been like, I'm out of here. I got to go somewhere else. Like, this is too much. But as we got to like June of 2020, and as we started to learn all the facts about it not really like being that transmittable by surfaces, and most of the people who were actually getting hospitalized by this, people that had pre-existing conditions or that were elderly. And that's the same kind of thing that the flu attacks. So it's sort of like, we shouldn't shut down everything for the flu, but it seems like a lot of the news that comes out of this is just like trying to keep people afraid. And I'm not the kind of person that lives my life being afraid. And I used to really respect a lot of this country because we would go forward without fear. We just kind of were like, all right, what else you got? And like, we'll find a way to get past it. But it seems like fear was encouraged, and everyone needed to fear. And fear and respect, they're two different things. You can respect something and not fear it. And it just seems like media has just turned things into such a frenzy that it's gotten out of hand. People should have gone back to living their lives probably in the fall of 2020 and just gone out there and lived, because people at that point were either going to have had it, or we had herd immunity, or you're not at that big a risk anyway, and we just move on and forward with our day. But no one did, and things remained as they were. I obviously, if you know me, I moved to Austin, Texas in August of 2020, and then was there until I came back to Boston in February of 2021. So kind of lived down in Austin for part of the pandemic-y time, and it was weird to move to a new location during this time frame because not everything was open or going fully. And Austin without festivals, is it really Austin? It was still weird, don't get me wrong, but I just don't really get why everything shut down. It just shut down for too long. And I think that at a certain point, somebody needed to make the call that, hey, the nation's economy is suffering. People's mental health is suffering from being shut in and not going to do things that they should be doing. Honestly, people should have just ignored that and just gone and lived their lives, seen people and done things. It would have made probably things a lot easier for them. I know if I wouldn't have just gone forward and just kind of tried to do as much as I could to like be normal, that I would have gone insane. I mean, look, I'm not going to say I didn't go insane at parts, but it just, I don't get why people just didn't go forward and move and go do stuff. I understand there are people with pre-existing conditions. Not a person saying COVID's fake. I understand it's a real thing. I understand some people are at risk. I do get that. But I kind of equate it to, there are people that are allergic to peanuts and we don't stop making peanut butter. Those people just kind of avoid peanut butter and we kind of agree to not throw peanuts at those people. It's just sort of a contract that we go through and we just kind of, we do it. And with this, it just seems like they shut down the whole country for something that, affects less than 1% of the population. And it just seems like, a lot of the numbers got skewed. No one should really put any faith in a lot of that stuff. And I just don't understand why everyone's making such a fuss about this. And now that it's October 2021, the vaccine's out, people have taken it. Between the vaccine and people getting it, having antibodies and moving forward, at this point, there shouldn't be any more masks. People should be back to living normal lives. And it is that way to a certain degree. There are still people wearing masks out of choice, but here in Boston, it's a mandate. And it just seems insane to me that people won't move forward and do what they need to do. And I have kept my mouth shut about a lot of my feelings on this for a while because I didn't want to get in any trouble with my employers. I didn't want to offend any of my friends or family that may have differing opinions. But quite frankly, I feel like a lot of people feel this way I talk to, but they're not using their voice. They're not saying anything. So, when it comes to vaccinations and stuff, I feel like people should be able to do what they want to do on this one. And right now they're starting to get to the point where they're requiring it for people to do things. And I just don't think that's right. I don't think this is, you're basically trying to get everyone to get a flu shot. And it doesn't really feel necessary. You can't mandate that stuff. It just seems like it should be against the law. I don't want to ever be told I can't go somewhere or I can't work somewhere because I don't have a vaccination card. Like that just doesn't seem fair to me. I'm not against people getting the vaccine. I understand the high risk people that need it. Go ahead. But I just feel like it's new. We don't have a lot of information about how it affects people. And until we, know 100% that it's good, if your body's good and things are running fine, why do you need to jam something in there? Like I've had it. I had the antibodies at one point. I donated. I feel like I'm good to go. Like I've lived with people in the medical profession. I live with someone in the medical profession right now who works at a hospital. We don't mask up here at home. We don't have conversations about it other than they're not worried about it. I listen to podcasts where Dr. Drew, if you're familiar with his work, he's a board certified physician. He's not that worried about it. Look, he has the vax. I'm not saying I'm not anti-vax. Please don't put me in that box. I'm pro-choice. I'm just kind of like want everybody to do what they want with their bodies, and if they don't want it, they don't need to get it. And I don't feel like it puts any of the vaccinated people at risk. So why the uproar over making sure these people get it? I just don't. It blows my mind because what they're saying is, or a vaccine doesn't work because if you as a non-vaccinated person get it, then we're at risk. So if your vaccine doesn't work, why are you pushing it on me? That's what I'm saying. Why would you push it on anybody? Especially when it's experimental. Do you need to put that into the arm of a child at this point and risk their health? You don't know how it's going to affect everybody. So why experiment with everyone? Just doesn't seem right to me. And I'm not the kind of person that usually gets up on the soapbox and tries to stand up for things of that nature. And this has been made political, by the way. I don't think it should, because like some people are like, "Oh, he's a Republican." It's like, please don't put me in that box. Like I don't want to get into that conversation. I'm just talking about this per se. And I feel like the spin that's being put on it by the media all over the place, it connects the political side of it, and then it gets to the point where now it feels like people are bullied because they don't have a vaccine or they don't want to be a part of it. I don't know if that's necessarily fair. I thought about discussing this with a guest, even a friend or a family member, but I just felt like it's hard because people are really passionate about this. And when you're talking with somebody, sometimes it's hard to get across everything that you want to get across because you're respecting the conversation, letting them speak. You may forget to say a few things. So I wanted to just share my thoughts as myself, by myself, on where I stood on this, because I just feel like no one is using their voice to stand up and say, I think it's cool if you don't want to get the vaccine. But the country is starting to make it seem like you're going to have this vaccination card to go do anything. And, this isn't polio. This isn't it's one of those more serious diseases they came up with a vaccine for. This is the flu. It's a stronger strain of the flu. Like when I said I was sick for 10 days and I was down for a while, I didn't feel like I had anything different. I felt like I had the flu, and it was a solid flu. Hats off. Well done, COVID-19. Solid. But I don't think we need to create if we have a vaccine that kills it and gets rid of it completely, and everybody uses it and no one gets harmed in a year or two, I'm there. I'm all about it. I'm with you. But until then, I'm just not comfortable. And I feel like when you really sit and think about it, you should feel like that's okay for me to make that choice. Like if they came up with a new experimental gas for you to put in your car, you're going to be one of the first people at the pump? Are you? I wouldn't be. I think I'd be like, well, the gas I use now works pretty fine in my car, and I'm not going to experiment with my car. And I feel like that's the vibe here that I'm getting with this thing. And I understand that mindset of, oh, if everybody gets vaccinated, then we all feel safe. But are we actually safe? Like, don't let that ideal confuse you with what's actually happening. Is that actually going to make us safe from COVID-19? Like, we're already safe. Most of us are already safe. Over 99% of us are already pretty safe from this thing. So why would we worry about it as much as we're worrying about it? Why would we put these things in place? I'm so confused by it. And right now, honestly, I'm speaking at a very normal tone and not angry tone, but I get very angry about this a lot. Because like I said, I've talked to a lot of medical professionals, I've listened to a lot of medical professionals, and they don't seem that worried about it. But that stuff doesn't seem to hit the news. In fact, the other day I saw a story about how New England being ravaged by COVID variant. And I'm just like, where? Like, I didn't understand this article because I'm like, I live in New England. I live in Boston. I have family in Connecticut, family in Vermont. I'm not hearing any of these stories. What, where is this coming from? Like, they're just trying to get people to be fearful again. And I'm not really sure what the angle is here. But the other day when I don't know, maybe I'm foolish here, but when I heard that the vaccine was being made by people and companies are putting it out there, like Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, my thought was, so we're all going to have to pay for this? And people were like, oh, no. And it was like, oh, cool. All right, well, that's nice. And then I found out that the government's paying for it and that these companies are making money on that vaccine. And to me, I just honestly feel like that is what are we doing, people? What are we doing? Like, these companies are making money off this, so obviously they must be involved in the spin that's being created by the media. Like, I thought these companies were coming up with this out of the goodness of their heart. Because look, let's be honest. Let's put yourself in their shoes for a second. Say you're a pharmaceutical company, and there's a plague breaking out that's going to end society and mankind as we know it. Right? Say that exists. Say that's a thing. And you come up with a vaccine for it. Wouldn't you just give it to everybody for free? You can afford it. Give it to everybody for free, and then you've got customers for life. Guess what? I need aspirin, I'm going to Pfizer. I need this, I'm going to Moderna, because they saved our ass when we were around. Because guess what? If people don't survive, then they're not around to spend money for you anymore. But they took the government's money to create a vaccine to make everybody safe, apparently. And it's like, well, what's going on right now? Because are we just part of some big scam? Because that's kind of what it feels like to me. And I appreciate I'm respectful. I can't say I appreciate, but I'm respectful of everybody else's views and what you want to do. And I kind of want you to do what it is that you want to do. I'm not here to talk you out of your opinion. I'm just here to say, let's be respectful of everyone else's opinion, even if it's not yours, because in this case, there are question marks. There are things to be worried about, and being naive to it and just saying, oh, I'm going to go along with it. It's like, I don't necessarily think the government really cares about every single individual in this country. And if you think that way, I'm surprised. Like, we're a number, we're a human being, we're a cog in the big machine that goes around, and it's right now we're feeding into this narrative and this scare tactic, and it bothers me so much. I recommend to people that you listen to the Adam Carolla show, which I'm actually wearing their hoodie right here, or listen to the Adam and Drew show, which is actually a little bit better for some of this stuff, because Drew talks about it a lot on there, and it's actually gotten to the point where I enjoy the show so much and I enjoy what they're saying, but it makes me so angry because it's like, why is it being talked about on this show? Why is this not mainstream? Why aren't people just going back to live their life? And by the way, both those guys have been vaccinated. So it's not like they're anti-vax or any of that kind of stuff. It's not about that. It's just about trying to get some truth out there and talking about stuff where there's not some spin on it and having conversations about how we feel like things should be done. And honestly, nobody has given as much thought to the mental health of this country as they should, because this thing has been just a nightmare for people, because not only does it affect the financial, which then also affects the mental. And then people are stuck, they're shut in, they can't see loved ones, they're worried about this, that, and the other thing. I mean, the worry. Oh my God, if this had happened to me when I was a teenager, or I would have worried myself into an ulcer by the time I was probably 16, 17 years old, because I used to worry about everything all the time. So I worry about the effect it's having on our youth. And the fact that we're not all being strong and just saying, let's move on. This thing's not that important. Like, we have the knowledge now. It's October 2021, and it's time to move on. We don't need to have everybody doing this vaccination thing. We don't need all this stuff. I'm not anti-vax. Get it if you need it. I'll be there at some point. I'm not there now. If it works and is effective, I will get it. If I feel like it's not, I don't need it. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people don't need it, but you're just getting it anyway, and that seems weird to me. I don't know why you would get something you don't need. If you don't like NFL football, would you buy the NFL football package? No. Should they make it mandatory that you get the NFL football package? No, because you don't need the NFL package if you don't like football. I just feel like there's a lot of that going on right now. It makes me upset, and I'm being pretty chill about it because I myself have been going to therapy to help deal with this issue and just other regular brain health matters. But mental health is very important to me. It's important to our country, and I think it's been taking a backseat for way too long. And I think part of extending this pandemic and the fear in everyone is really not good for everybody's mental health. I'm concerned. That's why I'm mad. I'm less mad about how it affects me, and I'm more mad about how it affects everyone else and the future of this country. And I'm the kind of guy that if you've talked to me, I'm not a super fan of this country, and it's because of this. I want us to be strong. I want that America that I'm proud to be a part of. And some of the stuff that we're doing right now, I'm just not proud of. It's an insane time for everybody. And sometimes it's kind of hard to look out there and be like, what is everyone doing? And that's why I'm glad that I have the basement to hunker down in when stuff goes down. I can podcast from here. As long as we have internet and power, I'll probably make it through. So I know that's a weird note to go out on. I'm sure you disagreed with some of what I've said. Again, I can only look at things from my perspective. I'm sorry for all of those who lost someone as a result of this, or had to go through something horrible on your own. I know there are people with circumstances that have made this more serious, that they've had to take note and make sure that they do what they need to do for them. And that's what I'm all about. I just want you guys to all do what you need to do for you to be in the best mental health and the best physical health. And I feel like at this point, most people's physical health is not at risk. So that's why I'm worried about the mental health. And that's why I want us to just kind of move on, just get back out there and get back to living life. The spike in cases, the testing for this thing, all this stuff, it needs to end. It needs to end because it's not that important anymore. But they've done a good job. Science has told us the facts. If the vaccine works and a lot of people have it, and a lot of people have already gotten it and they have immunity, what are we doing still? Like, what are we doing? Like, let's go. So honestly, I want everybody to just stay safe out there. I know you've heard pretty much everyone's take on COVID, and I've been silent on mine because I honestly didn't want to be discriminated against for having any views that go one way or the other. And I'm sick of being quiet. I'm sick of lying about it. I'm sick of people assuming things about me that maybe aren't true. I'm done with it. Like, I'm done with it. And I've been done with it for a long time. And every once in a while when I go outside in the world, I realize, oh yeah, people still aren't over this. I have to care. I have to pretend to care. I'm done. Like, I'm done caring about it. And I wish everybody else would get on the same boat so we can start to heal as a nation, not just mentally, but also financially, and get back out there and go back to work, people. Stop taking the free handout that the government gave you to sit home. Get back out there and go. Got to get back to doing what we got to do. If everybody wants to get back to normal, you have to go back out there and get to it. And right now, people are just reluctant. They want to sit inside and they want to stay in their basements like this. And I understand it's nice down here, but you got to get back out there and do life. If we miss you out here, get out here and do it. And don't be afraid of anything. Like, let's go. There are certain people that need to be afraid. Let them be afraid. You do you, and let's get out there. Okay, everybody, that's the show for today. Just before we get out of here, I want to remind you to check out courtcousins.com. All our links are there for that show. We're getting ready to shoot again. We've had a lot of buzz so far from the Magic community, so we're really hoping to continue that venture and have it go positively. I know this was a little bit longer episode and a little bit heavy at the end, but I got to talk some sports. I got to have some fun. And here's a preview of what's coming up on next week's show as we go out. So thanks for coming, and enjoy this sneak preview of the guests that will be joining me for the next show. Thanks for coming.
There's this chick on Facebook that I friended just because she has my last name. She's like really hot.
Okay. Yeah. I've done that.
I was like, oh, maybe she thinks, like, maybe she'll think we're related or something, and she'll be too embarrassed to ask, so she'll just accept my friend request. And then, I have this hot chick in my feed from time to time. So it worked, but she's gotten married since then. So now she's got a different last name, and there's no reason for me to be friends with her anymore.
That happened to me when I was working at UVM. There was a girl on one of the visiting teams that had the same. There was a pair of sisters, and their last name was Pichet. And
really?
I actually like introduced myself and met them, after the game, and said hello to them. And we've been friends on like Facebook ever since. And they live in I think South Dakota or something like that. And like they comment on my stuff once in a while. And I don't know. We've kind of grown this friendship just based on having the same last name. It's wacky, but. We don't think there's any relation. But
the reason why I got the idea to do that originally was, and probably why she popped up as like a suggestion or something. Like, I don't know, like I wasn't looking for her. I'm sure it was a suggestion or something. Was because there was another guy with my exact name who sent me a friend request, and he was like, I just want to friend all the Doug Duponts that there are. And he was a guy who was like full of personality and so yeah, he friended everybody who had his same name. I think I'm friends with him still too. So I was like, I've got a whole collection of like DuPonts as Facebook friends who we're not actually related to.
That's probably not a bad idea for you, because DuPont has a name with some clout. You guys have done something.
I know. None of them are rich, unfortunately. I found all of the poor DuPonts that somehow exist in the world.
I mean, when Jeff Gordon was tearing up NASCAR, what name was on the hood? Let's go, bro.
I know, the Delaware, I think, DuPonts, and that's just I gotta start friending some of them, I guess, and then seek out my my inheritance what is it? Yeah, that's what happens in like books and stuff, right? People get an inheritance from some unknown relative.
That's what I've been told. Yeah, that and romantic comedies and things of that ilk. They have to
exactly.
You have to show that you got married, and as long as you've produced an heir, now you can inherit it.
I got that on lockdown, so I've been waiting for my check, but it hasn't come yet. Somebody's got to die somewhere.